In this video, I'm just going to quickly run through the pages on the unit circle. It'll be really helpful if you actually watch this video first on Khan Academy, and then if you're still unsure, watch this video to help you go through these pages. So a unit circle is a circle with a radius of 1, and it's drawn on the number plane there. Label each of the quadrants. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's look at the first quadrant. It says consider any point on the circle P, X, Y. A right angle is constructed. What are the using the coordinates of P? What is the height? So this is all done in the video above. So hopefully, I'm just gonna rush through this. We go across X and up Y to get to P, which means that this is X and this is Y. That means so the length of the base is X, length of the hypotenuse is 1, height is Y. Mark these three things on the diagram. That should be 1. It's 1 because it's a unit circle with radius 1. So we're going from the center to the circumference, so that's the radius. So what's sine theta? Okay, so sine theta, again, this is done in the previous video, so I'm just going to race through it, is opposite over hypotenuse, so it'll be y over 1. So sine theta is just y. And then cos theta will be adjacent over hypotenuse, so x over 1, which will just be x. So sine theta is y, cos theta is x, and tan theta, you should remember that tan theta is sine theta over cos theta. So it's going to be y over x. Okay, we're going to use this information to extend our knowledge with angles beyond 90. It says extension, but it's not really extension. You need to know how to do this. So using Pythagoras' theorem, it's very similar to what we do when we find find the equation of a circle when we derive it. So we just said, I know I've drawn this the other way, but we've just said in that triangle above that the base was x and the height was y and the radius was 1. So using Pythagoras' theorem, x squared plus y squared equals 1 squared. So x squared plus y squared equals 1. And we know from here that x is cos, so it'd be cos squared theta, plus y is sine, so sine squared theta equals 1. And that's how we get this identity here. This identity is extremely important, so please don't think, oh, it's extension, I don't need to know it. It's going to be the basis pretty much of the whole next booklet. Okay, so let's have a look. Oh, we just kind of did this. X we said was cos theta, sine theta, tan theta. Okay, cool. So keep those handy. All right, now in the second quadrant, it says we define the trigonometric ratios of obtuse angles as follows. It's always going to be in the second quadrant 180 minus the angle. So the reference angle that we're using, even though we're talking about this angle, we're always using the reference angle of theta between the x-axis and the line. So, you should know this from year 10. You did these exact same pages in the year 10 booklet. So, trigonometric ratio of 135 is the same as 180 minus 35 equals 45, but with a possible sign change. So, we'll talk about what that means in a second. All right, this is really important. In the second quadrant, is x positive or negative? Well, on the number line, x is negative. These here are the negative x values, which means x is negative. In the second quadrant, is y positive or negative? Y is still positive because these are the positive y's and these are the negative y's down here, positive x and negative x. So y is still positive. So that means that this time in the second quadrant, sine theta is actually the same as sine 180 minus theta. And let's have a look at that. It would be opposite over hypotenuse. which will be y over 1, which is just going to be y. It's going to be positive, okay? I might actually write these differently. So let's talk about, I'll do that one sec. I'll do this at the very end. So let's talk about cos 180 minus theta. So remember, cos 180 minus theta is the same as, well, let's have a look. Adjacent over hypotenuse, it'll be negative x over 1. So it'll be negative x. That means it's going to be, remember cos is x, so it's going to be negative cos theta. That means that cos is negative in the second quadrant. Okay. And now tan 180 minus theta is, remember, y over x. Y is positive, x is negative. So we end up with, sorry, I've run out of room here. We end up with, negative y over x, which means we'll get negative tan theta. Because remember, y over x is tan theta, and it's negative, so we get negative tan theta. So what we can see is that in the first quadrant, they were all positive. Sine, cos, tan. In the second quadrant, sine was positive, and cos and tan were both negative. Okay, because the x value was negative, and when we did the opposite over adjacent or opposite over hypotenuse or whatever, because of the x term, it became negative. So let's have a look at and it's all summarized here for you as well. Let's have a look on the third quadrant. Okay, in this one, we do 180 plus theta, okay? So it's the same as, that should say, yeah, that's right. So in this case, we look at what angle do I need to add. This whole angle, say for example, is 225. We're just going to be doing the same as just whatever this angle is here, whatever I've needed to add to 180. So again, x is negative, but this time y is negative as well, and 1 is still positive. X is negative, y is negative. Okay, so again, sine equals 180 plus theta. Let's do opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite is negative y over 1, which means it'll be negative y, which means it'll be negative sine theta. Cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, so negative x over 1 equals negative x, which will be negative cos theta. And tan is y over x, remember, opposite over adjacent, so it'll be negative y over negative x, which will be positive y over x, which will give me positive tan theta. Maybe I won't write the positive because it looks like I've written two t's. So we can see here, sine, cos, and tan. Sine's negative, cos is negative, and tan is positive this time. And looking at our very last one, this time we do, it's always the angle between the x-axis and the line, okay? So this will be 360 minus theta. This time x is positive, y is negative, and let's have a look at writing the ratios. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so negative y over x. Oh, sorry, I just did that wrong. Negative y over 1, which will be negative y, which is negative sine theta. Cos will be adjacent over hypotenuse, so x over 1, which is just x, which is cos theta. And tan will be opposite over adjacent, so negative y over x, which will be negative tan theta. So you can see here, sine, cos, and tan, negative, positive, negative. So we're going to summarize that on the very last page. Hold on. We established form axes using the unit circuit. I'll come back to that in a second. On this last page, we're going to summarize it. So just kind of what I did in the first quadrant, sine was positive, cosine was positive, tangent was positive. In the first quadrant, all of the trigonometric ratios are positive. In the second quadrant, sine was positive, negative, and negative. So in the second quadrant, all of the ratios are negative except for sine. Oh gosh, I don't know what that says. Anyway, sine theta. And then you need to go and summarize the rest. And you should know the mnemonic, all stations to central. All of them are positive. Sine is positive. Tan is positive. Cosine is positive. Okay. Back to these ones, we need to know the boundary angles. So to do that, it says use the unit circle. So this is the point 1, 0. And this is the point 0, 1. And this is the point negative 1, 0. And this is the point 0, negative 1. So, just quickly. Remember that the coordinates are x, y. So this is x, y. So this is when... yeah, okay, cool. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of it. All right, and remember, cos theta is x, and sine theta is y, and tan theta is sine over cos, so y over x. Okay, so looking at this coordinate, x is 1. Okay, so this is when the angle is 0. We haven't moved anywhere, so this is at 0. So we're looking at this column here. So x is 1. Oh, sorry. X is cos, so that means cos is 1. Y is sine, so this is cos, and this is sine. So that means sine is 0. And tan is 0 over 1, which is also 0. Okay, now looking at 90, so we're looking here because that's 90 degrees. Remember, this is x, this is y, so this is cos, this is sine. So cos is 0, sine is 1, and tan is 1 over 0, which will just is undefined. Remember, we can't divide by 0. You can go ahead and do the rest of these. This is cos, this is sine. So write them down and then say what tan is. All right, guys, finish off the rest of this worksheet, and then you can graph the trigonometric ratios on the next page.